welcome to Shifting Religious
Good
Concepts.
morning.
Good morning. All right, we're going to get going here.
Morning.
We're so pleased to be here with you today for a novel look at the Bible and what it means for all of us. My name is Mark Thomas. I'll be moderating today's program. During the show, remember that we encourage you to ask questions or make comments by raising your hand in the Zoom feature, and we will do our best to answer those as we go along. So our panel today is Anala D, Archie Sanders, and Dr. Kedar Griffo. I don't see Griffo yet, but hopefully he's going to, there he is. He just dropped in.
There he
Perfect.
is.
All right, good timing there. We hope that you're excited to sit in on the 11th installment of SRC's presentation of the Book of Revelation. If you missed any of our previous episodes, don't forget you can find all of them on the Shifting Religious Concepts YouTube channel. So just write in Shifting Religious Concepts and click on our channel and you will see every one of our episodes. SRC knows that there is ancient wisdom in the Bible and other places that is concealed or manipulated in traditional teachings such as Christianity. The Book of Revelation is a perfect example of this. As SRC unpacks these verses, you will see what this amazing story is actually telling us about ourselves and our journey to a higher consciousness. So we urge you to listen closely because it truly is a revelation. It is to me. So Pastor Archie, let's get back into the revelation. We're not going to waste any time today. Last time we had a panel discussion where we left off in chapter 6. In this chapter, one seal after another is opened to reveal its own very symbolic representation of the human chakra. And as we mentioned before, the spiritual journey that we must take by overcoming our lower chakra and so reach our highest enlightenment. In the first 8 verses of this chapter, we talked about all the symbolism surrounding the 4 horses and their riders. So I believe we're now in verse 9 through 11 of chapter 6, where the 5th seal is going to be open. I know there's a lot to unpack here. Before we open it up to the panel for discussion, would you set the scene for the audience in this verse 9 through 11, maybe by starting off by reading it and then describing what it's about?
Okay, good morning. Good morning. It says, when he opened the 5th seal, I saw underneath the altar the souls of those who had been sacrificed because of the arcane doctrine of the God and because of the evidence which they had. They cried out with a great voice, saying, "How long, O thou the supreme, the holy and the true, doest thou fail to judge and avenge our blood upon those who dwell on the earth?" White robes were given them severally, and it was said to them that they should keep still yet a little time until their fellow slaves and also their brothers who would be killed even as they were should have finished their course. The 5th seal. Okay, and according to what I've found out here, that corresponds to the sign Cancer, and Dr. Griffo can help us out with that if he would. But the 5th sign, the 5th seal, I'm sorry, corresponds to the sign Cancer and the actual chakra, or the cavernous plexus, which later is closely connected with the pituitary gland, the membrane vira, so to say, of the brain. The atrophied, or which is the sacrifice brain centers, are partially aroused by the spirina at this stage, but they are suppressed until the other centers, which are their brothers, have all been brought into action and then killed, placing avians while the cerebral centers are being awakened. And that's what we're seeing that it says this way. It says, and he had opened the 5th seal. I saw on the altar the souls of them that were slain for the word of God and for the testimony which they held. So as we have been going along, we've been explaining how this area, which it says this area here, corresponds to the sign Cancer and the Ajna chakra, the cavernous plexus, which later is connected with the pituitary gland, which is up there in the brain, around the brain area. Is that correct there, Dr. Griffo?
Yes, the ajna is this area right here.
And then it says that they were suppressed until all the other centers, which the other brothers have been brought into action and then killed. Then placed in abeyance while the cerebral centers are being awakened, and they receive white robes for this center. For at this center, the currents bifurcate and their light suffuses the brain. So from what I'm understanding, they began to divide in parts there in that area. And they spread all over or fills the brain in that area with when it was talking about they was waiting to be killed. Everybody come together, and then everybody it said they separated. They spread out over the brain, and it says this is sort of like reincarnation. During the cycle of reincarnation, all the chakras have been slain. All the chakras they've been slain during this time, and it said they've been slain and dormatized by the gross elements of the material sensuous life, yet they retain the evidence of things spiritual.
I have a question. Okay, my question is, I know you were talking about verse number 9. It says, when he had opened the 5th seal, I saw under the altar the souls of them that were slain. So I know that in religion, we are taught that those are all the saints that have already died and their blood is calling out to God to revenge them. Now, this is not what it's talking about, is it? So I want making sure that our audience understand this very clearly, that this is talking about, from what I'm understanding, is talking about the other chakras. Yeah, it's talking about the other chakras that have been slain, right?
Right, because they are it says that they are atrophied. They are slain, which speaks of the other chakras until the cycle of reincarnation.
So why would they say, why are they saying that they were slain for the word of God? And I mean, this is to Dr. Griffo, and Lavelle has joined us also, so anybody can answer that. Why are they slain? Because that's what people think. People think, and this is what I want people to be clear on, because we were taught that people were slain because they were teaching about Jesus. But what is this clearly saying? Let's make sure we really clear it up for our audience. Why? We know why they were slain. We know that you're moving up to higher consciousness. But why is the scripture saying slain for the word of God? And we know that word also means vibration. So explain that a little bit more.
There we go. I've been trying to get that off. You're right. Insofar as your understanding that is dealing with the chakras, is dealing with the lower nature, and how as we make that climb back up from the sacrum back up, you know what I mean? As you pass through each chakra, you're slaying it. You're slaying it, just like the way the Bible talks about altar. You know, when they put the certain beast on the altar, you know, it would ask you to put a ram, sacrifice a ram. That's because the sun has went through Aries. And it tells you to sacrifice a bull. That's because the sun has went through Taurus, etc. And that's how it goes. Like sacrifice a goat because the sun has went through Capricorn. So the same thing happens here. As you're moving up the chakras, you're slaying those lower energies as you move on up to become one with God. So there's really not a lot that I could add to what you're actually saying, other than understanding that when the Bible speaks about being slain, it is talking about as the sun makes its way through the various zodiac ages, in the same way that the sun makes its way via the cerebral spinal fluid through those various chakras back up to become one with God on the right side. So I can't really add a lot to what you've already put there. Maybe Brother Lavelle can add something to that.
Okay, good morning. Well, I'm in agreement with all of y'all. There's not much more that can be added, except the fact that when you're talking about vibrations, if you're slaying your vibrations, you're cutting off a portion of yourself or your ability to know, see, intuit things. And, we're in this age right now that, we need to be able to do that. We need to be able to intuit. We need to be able to know, we be able to see. And I think that there's great attempts right now to slay all of that, especially, when you start speaking about the chemtrails that's in the air, the chlorine that's in the water, the fluoride that's in the toothpaste, that affects the chakras.
So I guess what we really need to understand, and everybody, what we want to teach here at SRC is that some of these words, some of this information that we're reading here are things that were put there by men, for example, were slain for the word of God and for the testimony which they held. So some of that information there, you just got to realize it's not talking about people being slain. It's not talking about the fact that people did not receive Jesus Christ is why they're, and all those things. So that is not what it's talking about. But this the way the scripture is written, it will make you believe a lie actually, and not really see the truth. That is that how we can understand that?
Yes, I mean, like for example, when it talks about the 144,000 being slain, and resurrected again and going to live with God. Well, but Christians are also saying another vein that, this is a personal journey. Jesus is your personal savior. So it's all, when you're talking about the 144,000, you're only talking about the 7 chakras and the 7 and the petals that go along with each chakra. I think we talked about that, a few months ago, how down at the root chakra is 4, then up at the sacral is 6, and keep going up until it adds up to 144. So that's talking about one individual. Each one of us has 144,000 souls per se, because we have these 144,000 petals based off of the chakras as they are aligned to our different adrenal glands or endocrine system. So when you're speaking of, as you was just saying, when it's talking about many souls being slain, it's the same concept. The same way that you got 144,000 souls going up to God, who's are righteous, who will be the first ones called up, is because they have activated those chakras and those 144 petals. And the same concept applies here with those many beings being slain, which is really just one being being slain, which is you, because it's always personal. This is not ever speaking in a plural context. It's always speaking in a singular concept, because individual journey, as they always taught us, and it actually is.
Gotcha. So when in verse 10, where they're talking about, and they cried out with a loud voice, why would our chakras, Pastor Archie or Lavelle, any one of you guys, Dr. Griffith, why would our chakras be crying out? Or is that also just verbiage that was put in there? I want our audience to understand that.
One thing we really got to keep in mind, that 2 different disciplines, if I may use that word, are being spoken to: the exoteric and the esoteric. Those who were given a certain thing that the church fathers wanted them to think, and those who knew the truth about what Apollonius was talking about, when, as Dr. Griffith said, understanding what the 144,000 meant would be the esoteric would understand it. But then on the other side of the fence, the exoteric, they would be looking at actual, men, and they wouldn't be looking at chakras, because they're not familiar with that. If I may add that there.
Yes, you're right. I understand that so clear. So the people that's crying out, then that is not talking about the spiritual side. That's relating to the physical side of how someone wrote this, or are the chakras crying out?
A chakra. The chakra, yeah. Apollonius on the chakra side is the eso. The people crying out will be on the exo. You understand what I'm saying?
Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, because when you look at the chakras, Jupiter rules this area. the throat area. So the voice, many waters, and then you go down further where it says that what you said, where it starts at 9, when he opened the 5th seal and I saw under the altar. So this is the altar right here. This is where the altar is. And then everything under that, especially when you get to here, is considered, this is earth, and then everything under this is hell. So then between this area right here, you got Jupiter ruling, you got I think Venus or Mars ruling, etc. Then the sun rules here, and of course Ram or Saturn rules up here. So as you understand how each chakra is ruled by one of those 7 original planets, and then you understand the characteristics behind those planets, then it starts to bring into focus a clearer picture of, like, you know, as we talked about when we first jumped into Revelation, that we gave the description of Jesus as, you know, the man with hair like lamb's wool. Well, you know, we know that Ram rules lamb's wool. So he had the voice of many waters, which is Jupiter. This is Saturn, this is Jupiter, or this is Aries. This is also Saturn. This is Jupiter. This is also Taurus. You follow what I'm saying? And as you go down, you'll be able to understand. They have something called Venus's belt, and that's what's a golden sash that went around his loins and etc. So as you're able to make the correlation between the 12 zodiacs and the 7 planets, then you'll be able to get a better, clearer picture, clear description, as Pastor Arch is saying, the esoteric, a clearer picture of what's being spoken of. And then as they went through and they got the white robe, well, of course, during alchemy, you have the stage at the bottom, which is black. And then once it's burned with the fire, which is red, and then what's left is the residue of the ashes of somebody that has been, that has died and been resurrected again, and they come out as a clean, white, fresh, you know, exterior. They're pure as snow. So when you're looking at the white robes, this is why Jesus had to be washed. Christians had to be washed in the blood of the Lamb. The blood is red, but they come out with the all white robe. So it's dealing with the 4 or the 3 to 4 stages of alchemy as well. So you have to be disciplined in many, you know, you have to be knowledgeable of many disciplines to fully get a total description and understanding of this particular verse. But like I said, dealing with the human body, you got the altar, then you got the nave, because right here in the middle is our navel, and then you got the outer porch. The same way the church is set up, the same way our bodies are set up, the same way any functioning machine is set up. You got the brains, you got the body, and then you got the outer porch of the legs.
Gotcha. So in verse 11, then, and you talked about the white robes were given to every one of them. So there wasn't white robes necessarily given to humans or people, but what it sounds to me like it was this verse is telling the other chakras, just rest for a little while. Just rest for a little while now, or am I wrong about that? Just rest for a season until our fellow servants, which means the higher chakras, are fully fulfilled.
Right. As you conquer those and you rise up, you know what I mean? You're changing from the original state of black matter to the red matter, then to the white matter. So as it's climbing up, you're changing your whole countenance until everything is lined up and you become this being with this huge aura, etc., which gives the appearance of a white mist, a white cloud, etc. That's all. You're
it also just shows you too how even when you have conquered that lower chakra and you moving up, it shows you still how those lower vibrations, they're still screaming out because they still want to be the dominant one. That's what I'm thinking here.
Yeah, but keep in mind now, reincarnation, starting over, regenerating. Whenever white is spoken of, regeneration, starting over again, a new beginning. You understand? So even though they were held back there while they were killed for a while, they had to wait to be reincarnated. They start again.
right. So you become at the highest level of spiritual attainment. This is why in the Catholic Church, the priests all dress in black, which is the bottom level, and then the next level up is the cardinals, and they have on red, and then at the final stage is the Pope, who has white. So it shows
Gotcha.
the stages as you grow along. And even in Freemasonry, it's the same thing. You know, for those who travel that path, they have the same color scheme in addition to that. So yeah, it's all about, you know, if you're looking at the Catholic Church, you can see the hierarchy and how they understand that the priests have to burn their desires first to be able to move up to cardinals. Then once they burn their desired cardinals, then out of them select one. One becomes the supreme or the Pope, or, you know, the one who dresses in white.
Yeah, I think we right at number 12 now there.
well, that last little piece right there on 11 says, while Leo precedes Cancer, the order in which the chakras are awakened is different, even though it's saying Leo precedes Cancer here, but the order of the chakras are different. Capricorn and Leo belong rather to the spinal axis than to the sympathetic nerve system, and are the two poles of the former. But it's showing it different here than what it really is in the 11th verse, which it talks about in the 11th verse. So we are at the 12. Y'all ready for the 12?
Yeah, we're ready. I want to get into you know, I do want to make sure that our audience, because I hear you, I hear all, and I understand. I just want to make sure that our audience understand that when we're talking about the blood, we're not talking about the blood of Jesus being spilled and all that. I want us to make sure that that is very, very clear, because when people are reading this Bible, they're reading what it says. They're taking it literally. So I want us to make sure that we are explaining that properly. So yeah. So that when they're talking about blood, it's not talking about the blood that's up under the altar. It's not talking about that. I think Dr. Griffo, you had talked about that blood being the spinal fluids, right? The fluids that run up and down.
Well, those fluids get differentiated as they pass through different glands in our body, and then they turn into 3 or 4 of those same color schemes that we got, because we got, you know, red is the blood in our liver, we got black bile, we also have yellow bile, and then we have either semen or phlegm. So out of the 4 liquids that come out of our bodies or that circulate within our bodies, it still has the same color scheme. In addition to the way they classify human beings, they got the Negroid, the black race, they got the red race, then they got the yellow race, and then they have the white race. So it's all categorized into those 4 particular liquids, those 4 directions, those 4 cardinal points, those 4 everything. You know, you have to look at it. The 4 and the 3 makes 7, which makes this whole thing a whole spiritual revelation. And I know Brother Lavelle can.
Okay, well, we're gonna go ahead to the 12th verse then, and it reads, and I beheld when he had opened the 6th seal, and lo, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood, and the stars of heaven fell upon the earth, even as a fig tree casteth her untimely figs when she is shaken of a mighty wind, and the heaven departed as a scroll when it is rolled together, and every mountain island were moved out of their places. And the kings of the earth, and the great men, and the rich men, and the chief captains, and the mighty men, and every bondman, and every free man hid themselves in the dens and in the rocks of the mountains, and said to the mountains and rocks, fall on us and hide us from the face of him that sitteth on the throne, and from the wrath of the Lamb. For the great day of wrath is coming, who shall be able to stand? Well, that was a scary one when they used to read it back in church. That was really a scary one, because it makes it kind of scary. But the 6th seal symbolizes the Mullahara chakra. Okay, when we're dealing with the chakras, and it lies at the base of the spinal cord. Okay, and it is the starting point of the central current, the Shushumna, the regenerative force, here called the org of the Lamb, the nous. Okay, this sounds scary, but again, I must reiterate that Apollonius is speaking to 2 different types of thinking. So you got to know that that he's speaking to those who know, and then he's speaking to those who they're just giving information to, and then they take it literally. So this sixth seal, it's talking about that Mullahara chakra, the base of the spinal cord. And that spinal cord, I tell you, it's really, man, you know, they can go in there and mess around and make mistakes in there. That means that you might not walk again, or all kinds of stuff might happen. But this is speaking of that area there. Upon the pouring of this fiery electric force into the brain, the mind becomes blank, and the novice is conscious only of blind terror. This is allegorized as the darkening of the sun. That's why it's saying there that it got dark. But I always thought about when it was preached to us that, you know, it was the end of the world, and man, shucks, things were getting ready to happen, and we had to hide ourselves from the terror that was. I used to ask the question all the time, what could be so scary that could cause man to want to hide and want to be killed? But this here, we're gonna open this up here, because it says, upon the pouring of the fiery electric force into the brain, the mind becomes blank, and the novice is conscious only of blind terror. This is allegorized as the darkening of the sun, which is the mind. The falling of the stars is the thoughts. The vanishing of the sky is the concept of space, and the planet of the earth dwellers is the lower forces in our faculties. It goes on to say, the process of sex transmutation must be attained by gradual development. If the awakening of the spiritual fire occurs before the reorientation of the mind, and it has not had time to go through the whole body, it tends to get out of control and run wild, and the consequence either affects the morals or the mind, or both. So we're looking at, when we talk about this sixth seal, it's talking about beginning at your spine. I think Doc said that fluid that runs up begins down there at that spinal, at the bottom of your spinal cord, and begins to come up, headed toward.
I have a question before for Dr. Griffo jumps in, if you don't mind. So when we're talking about the sixth seal, we're talking about normally the third eye. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So when I want to make sure I understand here. So when the scripture is talking about the hell, and we had when they opened the sixth seal, there was a great earthquake. What is the earthquake referring to?
Well, you have to look at it and go back into the book of Exodus and the book of, mostly Exodus, where, you know, Moses would go up to the high mountain and he would speak to God, and, you know what I mean, there would be this terrible rumbling and thundering and, you know, and all of that, because the God that you're dealing with back at that time was, again, we're dealing with mysticism, mythology, etc., is a Vulcan god, or volcano god. So every time Moses would go up, he would go to the volcano, and all of this would spew out. And what the Jews did later on was they created this symbol. You know, anybody that watched Star Trek, right? That was for the Vulcan deity. That's why Spock did it. And Leonard Nimoy, of course, is not, I don't know necessarily Orthodox Jew, but he's of the Jewish faith. So then when he brought the Star Trek, he brought this particular symbol when the priest in the Jewish temple would come out and speak, and they would bless the congregation, they would hold their hands out like this and speak and do a blessing over the congregation. They still do that today in any of the synagogues. So when you're dealing with the earthquakes and the volcanoes, and if you notice, this is really describing a solar eclipse, because, you know, the sky turned black, the whole moon turned blood red, the things were shaken by a strong wind, because those are the effects of what happens when you're dealing with a volcano erupting. And right now, I think there's a volcano erupting in Iceland or somewhere like that, or Antarctica or somewhere like that.
So in other words, this has nothing to do with the third eye, not really.
It does, because as you ascend back up, you're opening up. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because you get back into heaven. God is in this region.
Right. I got that.
That that there's no temple that is made with hand, and God dwells, etc. So as you're approaching this area, and now this has to open up. Like I'm gonna try to explain.
So let me ask you this, Griff. I don't mean to cut you off Dr. Griff, but so I think I just got so therefore opening up. So as you're approaching, everything is opening up. So that would appear, feel, sense as an earthquake opening up, like an earthquake does open up the ground. So it's the same type of thing. And at the same time, it sounds like that the sun became black as sackcloth and hair. So it sounds like that when your third eye is opening up the earthquake, then everything else in the world is kind of black, and you're not focusing on that anymore in the ego stuff. You're focusing more from within.
Absolutely. In ancient Egypt, they had the lotus plant, and the lotus plant represented rebirth, regeneration, and it would blossom. It would open up. So the same thing as you're coming up, it's going to open up. Okay. Now, if you remember, Jesus told them that, I think in Matthew somewhere, where he said, take no thought. Don't worry about this. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. Take no thought. So when you're in meditation, you take no thought. You're not thinking about anything. You're just an empty shell that's trying to subdue this area and just cut off all thought. So it's black. It's empty. There's nothing there.
Right.
It's void space. So
that's what I wanted to get to. Thank you. That's good.
Yeah. You're absolutely. You don't need us here. You got this.
No, we know. We do need you. Yes, we do. No, we need you. But I want to make, I guess what it is, I just want to make it clear, because I know, when like Dr. Griffo and Brother Lavelle and Pastor Archie and even Mark Thomas, you guys, you speak at a level sometimes, and I just want to make sure that we break it down so everybody can get it. That's what we're trying to do.
I think sometimes we kind of gotta wrap it up. I mean, we gotta put it kind of in a bag sometimes so we understand. It's all symbolism, right, Doctor?
Yeah, symbolism.
And just keep that in mind, because they start talking about mountains and a red moon and all these different things, but really, in effect, it's all symbolism about our chakra and about overcoming those things, right?
Because this is
our audience is saying, thank you for breaking it down.
This is the mountain. This is the Mount of God. This is Mount Calvary. This is Golgotha. This is all of it. It talks about a mountain is talking about coming up here. If you remember the Greek god Atlas, he was what? He had the head as the world on his shoulders. That was the mountain. And then, like I said, as it says in verse 14, the heavens receded like a scroll being rolled up, and every mountain and island was removed. So then all of the barriers were removed, and now you were able to go and commune with God like Moses did. Moses would go to the mountain, on top of the mountain, and hear the volcano erupting and speaking like thunder and etc., because it was dealing with the opening up of that chakra and going into that dark place. In Psalms, it talks about God only dwells in dark places.
I don't know about everybody else, but man, just hearing that is and sensing the opening up of the chakra. I've been working on my throat chakra, and just opening that all up and hearing you say how everything is opening up, it makes you feel so good to know that you have the ability to move from one area up to the next area. And every time you're doing that, you have conquered, and you're managing the lower vibrations, and everything else is just opening up and for your higher good. So I think that's just beautiful. I like how you just put that.
It's awesome, Anala, because see, me as a preacher sitting here, I'm really enjoying this, because see, it takes me back. You can't even see except you are born again. So we are telling them today, every stage initiates another one. You can't get to see through that third eye except you kill all this junk below you, and now things open up and you are able to see.
So when they're talking about, even in religion, as they talked about, you know, you got to be born again. What if someone would have just explained to me that born again didn't mean I need to just be born in the blood of anything, but be born as I'm born and moving up to the next level. Every level that you move up to in chakra is a new birth.
Yeah, well, the esoterically understood what it meant, but we that was the exoteric at the time didn't quite get it. We had to go with what was natural and what was literally spoken to us, because we did not have the understanding, the wisdom of what esoteric even meant.
But Dr. Griffo said, I think in he said that everyone had to start down in the bottom at the lower vibrations anyway. There was no way you could start at the top. So because I was thinking, let me just come in and start at the top. It doesn't work that way.
That was what Jesus meant when he said, when you remember when one of the maybe it was Nicodemus that came to him and said, you know, so when Jesus said you must be born again, and Nicodemus, so you mean we got to go back in our mother's womb? And he was like, no, dummies, you know. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's a spiritual rebirth. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It was always about, you know, going inside and again conquering each level and rising up until you get to that point where you're able to dwell with God on the right hand side. And you know, we're going to get into that right hand side one day. But
we're going to finish this chapter today. We're going to get there. But let me ask you this: so the kings of the earth. So you're talking about the people on the earth, and why are they hiding? Why are they afraid? As we're moving up, why are they afraid?
Because just like the lawyers, they were not letting people or teaching people to go within. So then it's just like the preachers now. They are afraid to teach the people what Pastor Arch is teaching, what you're teaching, what Brother Lavelle is teaching, what Brother Mark is teaching, because it would take away their position, their authority, and their bank accounts. So then they would rather have, you know, the people deaf, dumb, and blind, so then they can manipulate them. You know, the same way the government works. You know, the less I tell you and, you know, feed you a little bit, and then, you know, you're going to go off what I say. And if you try to think outside of that, then they label you as a hypocrite. You know, you're backsliding, or you're listening to some cult, or, you know what I mean? It's something like that. So they have to always manipulate and control information. And the moment that the people get access to the information, which is definitely helpful, and you require more of it when you meditate, then you will then be able to see behind the veil.
You know what's so amazing about this to our audience is that when we get this knowledge, it says right here in verse 15 that these people that Dr. Griffo just talked about, they start hiding themselves in dens and in the rocks. And why they're doing that? Because now they know that we have the same information they have. They know that we have the authority, we have the power to do and be and all those things. So now they're hiding themselves because they're afraid of what this power is going to do to them. And I wish that Lavelle would speak on this, because I know I've heard you talk some, Lavelle, about how when you get this power, how the world, those who were once in charge, how they now start to fear the authority and the power that you now know you have.
You know, and I'll start from the past. In the past, those of us who would speak as we're speaking now, they had to really fear persecution. And as I was saying last week about the personage known as Pythagoras, he had to fear persecution because his temple in which he was educating people, it was burned down and destroyed. So he had to flee. And he was followed in many lands for many years until, you know, he died in the wilderness, as they say. But when you tap in, as Brother Griffith would say, up in here, you begin to develop a certain kind of power, which you become Christ-like, simply put. And these powers that you possess magnify. And when the more that they magnify, the more that they will attract. And other like minds and like beings and like souls will begin to gravitate towards you, and then there develops a collective. Now, there doesn't have to be the majority or the masses of the people. It could be a very small, minute minority that can cause a great, 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 great change upon this planet that we call Earth. And so we're dealing with power. We're dealing with power. But every day, you know, we're slain and we're kept in a powerless state, and people actually feel powerless. Because every time you go on the internet, you know, there's always something that's being spoken about making you powerless, and that's how people feel. But once you begin to go within yourself, that's the key, to go within yourself first and foremost. That's when you develop that power, because it's already there. You were born with it. Okay, and that can be part of the struggle that happens, is that people fear what's inside of them. I feel like people fear more of what's inside of them more than they fear what's outside of them. Because when they start to feel things, the first thing they do is they grow afraid of it. Okay, and not to harp on women, but I sense this a great deal with women. When women come into contact and power with their own personal feelings, they begin to have some disorienting ideas about who they are and their identity. I see that beginning to change, but the more that all of us, men and women alike, begin to tap into ourselves and reorient this whole thing, then those entities which are feeding on us and off of us, which is negativity, they will cease to be. And then we'll be in a golden age.
Love that. I absolutely love that a lot. So, and when they're talking about and said to the mountains and rocks following us, what are they talking about then, Pastor Archer or anybody? Because it's not talking about the chakras are not telling the mountains to fall on them, are they? I mean, so are they talking? They're still talking to the people of the earth. What is that about in 16?
It talks about let me go back a little bit, because again, I was saying that upon the pouring of the fiery electric force into the brain, the mind becomes blank and the novice is conscious only of blind terror, only conscious of that. And then again, it is allegorized as the darkening of the sun, which is your mind. They talk about the mind. So you're saying, okay, they're running and hiding and saying, and they said to the mountains and rock, fall on us and hide us from the face of him that sitteth on the throne, from the wrath of the Lamb. Now just think about this for 1 instant, 1 second. As we begin to reincarnate, as we begin to rethink our life, our situations, now you have these lower elements that don't, you know, they really want to stay there, but it's saying, they're saying, fall on the mountain, fall on us, and hide us from the face of him that sitteth on the throne. So who's sitting on the throne? Your new thinking is sitting on the throne. You know, see, you no longer are allowing those things below that level to be in control of you. So now, literally, it seems like we are hiding and saying, "Oh, somebody just killed me, a rock killed me, or something," because what is about to happen, well, I don't want to have to face it. So now, you have a new way of thinking that is going to kill everything that is below that higher way of consciousness, and it no longer can thrive. Or I think you just said it can no longer be I think Brother Lovell just said it can no longer be the part of you that is in control. You have a new way of thinking. You're now looking within yourself, and you see that okay, wait a minute now, I'm above what has been happening to me and what has caused me to be in this lower way of thinking. So literally it was put in there. I'm telling you, you got to give it to Apollonius. He was very smart in the way that he ascribed this here. So man, you know, for one discipline, as I said, could understand that, oh, this man, it's talking about something as terrible is happening on the earth. It is happening on the earth. We are the earth, and it is happening within us. But you got to understand that on the other side, Apollonius is letting you know that, baby, now you got control. They look, those desires are running. You no longer, you're above the animalistic way of thinking. And I always tell people, you can't become great until you start thinking like an animal. So you're no longer there. So now those desires, which was presented as men running and hiding in the mountains, saying mountain fall on us and kill us. See, Apollonius knew that initiate, he knew that, baby, I have conquered those desires. I got them running and hiding. If that's, I don't know if I get in the plane of that.
That's good. That's good. A grip is, yeah.
Yeah, just to add to that, if we recall, David and Goliath. David was the higher self defeating the lower self, Goliath. And what did he use to slay Goliath with? Stones, rocks. If we go back to the book of Genesis chapter 30, where Jacob was wrestling with the angel, right? And they said that he went to sleep on a stone. And then when he woke up, it was many stones. And then he wrestled with the angel, conquered the angel, his lower self. And then he changed his name to Israel, meaning ascend to El. So when you're looking at the rocks, you're absolutely right. It deals with being able to conquer the lower self. They always use that because in our bodies, in the sacral area, they call that the sacrum stone. It's stones down there because when we're first born, it's about 5 stones, the 5 vertebrae, and then they fuse as we get older. It fuse and becomes 1 stone. But they start out as. So then, how many stones was it that David slew Goliath with? 5. You follow what I'm saying? So the symbolism is all there. You know what I mean?
Right.
Once you get it, you're like, okay, yeah, you can just keep walking with it and walking with it and walking with it.
Actually, that broke it down for our audience. I like that because so now we understand that those lower vibrations, we're not killing them, but we're definitely managing them because we still need them, but we now manage them. We have overcome those things. And so I like that. So those lower vibrations didn't want to go away. They wanted to stay there. That's what you're also saying too, Pastor Archie.
Yeah, but see, they're facing up to the fact that I'm no longer in control. Oh, somebody's up there that's hiding me and hide me because I can no longer, run this thing here. I'm not there no more. So I look, fall on us and hide us from what is about to happen to us. So yes, we do have those desires there, but it is awesome to know that we can conquer those desires. We never tell people, we just say, oh, you just a HOE or WHORE, however you want to put it, and that's what you are. But there's a reason. We could never tell the people that, oh, wait a minute, now this is the reason that you're having these problems is because you're operating in this level down here.
So this makes so much sense to me, even for people who have addictions, drug addictions and things like that. They are constantly trying to, say, I'm an alcoholic, I'm just whatever. But just imagine if they could understand that is something happening in their root chakra, something that they can control. If they could recognize that, if people would teach in that way instead of all the other things they're teaching, I believe that people will understand how they could now conquer and manage those sensations, those desires. Because really, I've never been hooked on drugs or anything, but from what I understand, is that the desire is so deep and they call out to people. It's the same type of desire I think that people have, the sex desires, you know, when you're young and you're coming up and you have that, your body's lusting and calling out and doing that type of thing. It's no different from managing that than managing a drug use. So when you think about it. And so, yes, I understand exactly what you are saying, Pastor Archie and Dr. Griffo and Lavelle too, about how you have to manage and conquer those things.
And all the time, now you got to keep in mind that some we have things against us that are constantly sticking us in the side or throwing it outside, which is the media. And a lot of times things are presented to us and cause us to want to think, cause us, it's like, you know how it used to be in the movie before you got to the time for your halftime or whatever you call it, they presented some things to you that you couldn't see in the screen, which caused you to go out there and buy some popcorn and all that stuff, but you didn't see it. You didn't see it, but it was sticking you in a place where you didn't realize that, okay, they're constantly telling me, oh, shoot, go buy this car. Cause this, look who's driving it. LeBron got one of them. And you know, it plays on our mind. And we have not come to understand that some of us haven't, that we're being played on all the time, constantly, every day, as we look at the TV, you know, and get on the phone and talk with people, try to, oh, it's just a lot, y'all. It's a lot.
Okay, so I guess we made it to 17, Thomas, did we?
That was the last one of that one.
Yeah, that was the last one. But
coincidentally, we're right at the end of the show too, so that's good.
Okay, let's toss it over to you, Mark Thomas.
Well, all right. Does anybody else have anything to say on this topic? I mean, it was a really amazing conversation today. I appreciate, especially when Lavelle, when he said, when we are as Christ, you know, that immediately made me think of the Lamb, and that's the way this thing is presented. The Lamb is presenting all these seals to us. So I think it's a, you know, amazing thing that came out today. Plus what Archie was saying about what I took to be, you know, that there is an amount of fear involved with this too, and you have to overcome that. All right. So everybody all set? We're gonna.
Yeah, I think we are.
I'm enjoying myself. I'm enjoying. I don't know about, but this is.
Yeah, that's good.
I am enjoying this series.
Yeah, because really, when you think about Revelation, it covers throughout the Bible, as Dr. Griffo tossing those scriptures out and letting us know that Revelation just isn't like just revealing what we're reading right here, but it reveals other scriptures in the Bible, and I think that's great that we go back and touch upon those things too, so that we can see what those scriptures meant through the eyes of Revelation.
Right. Okay, so next week we'll move on to chapter 7, where I think we're probably going to end up at the final seal too. That's going to be open. We'll see.
Yeah, and right. Dr. Griffo is going to be unpacking it next on 7.
All right. So all of us here with SRC want to thank the audience for sitting in on today's presentation. As always, our next broadcast will be on April the 4th at 10 o'clock Eastern. So please join us as we continue revealing revelations. We really appreciate everyone's patronage and encourage you to email us your questions or comments at shiftingreligiousconcepts@gmail.com. If anyone's interested in advertising with SRC, then please contact us at that same email. And don't forget that this presentation will be available on YouTube within the next few days. Even if you attended today's program, please go to the Shifting Religious Concepts channel and give us a thumbs up and subscribe. This is one of the few ways we get attention, and it really helps to promote the SRC mission. If you're not subscribed, go to our newsletter. Go to shiftingreligiousconcepts.com/registration and join us. So that does it for this broadcast. Once again, watch your email for the Zoom link for next week. And until then, we wish you all peace, health, wisdom, and love, of course.